Please make sure to subscribe our channel and press the bell icon to show us your support and get notified about a future video. Question 1. You plan to get data from flat files for a Power BI dataset. You need to select a location to store the files. Which location requires an on-premises data gateway? Select only one answer. Our options are A. OneDrive for business, B. Personal OneDrive account, C. SharePoint online team sites, or D. Shared folder on a local network. The correct option is D. Shared folder on a local network. The shared folder on a local network will require a gateway as it is not available to the internet. SharePoint Online, OneDrive, and OneDrive for Business all can be refreshed as cloud data sources without a gateway. Question 2. You need to make changes to your data sources. Which 3 changes are supported by the data source settings in the Power Query interface? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Select all answers that apply. Our options are A. Adding a column, B. Clearing permissions, C. Editing permissions, D. Modifying the file path, or E. Renaming a column. The correct options here are B, C, and D. The data source settings in the Power Query interface supports editing permissions, clearing permissions, and modifying the path of the data source file. Any structural changes to a file, such as adding, removing, or renaming columns, are not supported by the data source settings in the Power Query interface. Question 3. You have multiple Excel files stored in a folder synced with OneDrive for Business. You need to import data from the files. The solution must not use a data gateway. Which type of connector should you use? Select only one answer. Our options are A. Excel workbook, B. Folder, C. SharePoint folder, or D. SharePoint list. The correct option is C. SharePoint folder. A SharePoint folder is the only connector that will allow the import of multiple Excel files stored in a OneDrive for Business folder without using a data gateway. While you can connect to the folder on an on-premises device, it would require a data gateway to refresh in the service. An Excel workbook would only connect to a single Excel file and would also require a data gateway. A SharePoint list connector only connects to SharePoint lists and cannot connect to Excel files. Question 4. You have a Power BI workspace named Inventory that contains a dataset, a report, and a dashboard. You need to add an additional tile to a dashboard. The tile must show inventory by location. This information is not visualized in the report. The solution must minimize the impact on the report. Which 2 actions should you perform? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. Our options are A. Ask a question by using Q&A, B. Hide the report page, C. Pin the visual to the dashboard, D. Use quick insights on the dashboard, or E. Add the visual to the report. The correct options are A and C, that is, ask a question by using Q&A and pin the visual to the dashboard. In the Power BI service, a dashboard contains tiles pinned from one or more datasets, so you can ask questions about any of the data contained in any of those datasets. The answer to your question is displayed as an interactive visualization and updates as you modify the question. Open a dashboard and place your cursor in the question box. Even before you start typing, Q&A displays a new screen with suggestions to help you form your question. Question 5. You create a report by using Microsoft Power BI Desktop. The report uses data from Microsoft SQL Server Analysis Services Cube located on your company's internal network. You plan to publish the report to the Power BI service. What should you implement to ensure that users who consume the report from the Power BI service have the most up-to-date data from the cube. Our options are A. An OData feed, B. An on-premises data gateway, C. A subscription, or D. A scheduled refresh of the dataset. The correct answer is B. An on-premises data gateway. After you install the on-premises data gateway, you need to add data sources that can be used with the data gateway. You can work with gateways and SQL Server Analysis Services data sources that are used either for scheduled refresh or for live connections. Question 6. You have a report that contains 3 pages. One of the pages contains a KPI visualization. You need to filter all the visualizations in the report except for the KPI visualization. Which 2 actions should you perform? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. Our options are A. Edit the interactions of the KPI visualization. B. Add the same slicer to each page and configure sync slicers. C. Edit the interaction of the slicer that is on the same page as the KPI visualization. D. Configure a page level filter. Or E. Configure a report level filter. The correct options are B and C. Slicers are another way of filtering. They narrow the portion of the dataset that is shown in the other report visualizations. Control which page visuals are affected by slicers. Question 7. You have a report that contains a donut chart and a clustered column chart. Interaction between the visuals use the default settings. You need to modify the report so that when you select a column in the column chart, the donut chart redraws by using the data from the selected column. What should you do? Our options are A. Select the donut chart and set the column chart interaction to filter. B. Select the column chart and set the donut chart interaction to filter. C. Select the donut chart and set the column chart interaction to none. Or D. Select the column chart and set the donut chart interaction to none. The correct answer is B. Select the column chart and set the donut chart interaction to filter. Filters remove all but the data you want to focus on. Question 8. In Power BI Desktop, you are building a sales report that contains 2 tables. Both tables have row level security configured. You need to create a relationship between the tables. The solution must ensure that bidirectional cross-filtering honors the RLS settings. What should you do? The correct answer is B. Create an active relationship between the tables and select Apply Security Filter in both directions. By default, row-level security filtering uses single directional filters, whether the relationship are set to single direction or bidirectional. You can manually enable bidirectional cross-filtering with row-level security by selecting the relationship and checking the Apply Security Filter in both directions checkbox. Select this option when you have also implemented dynamic row-level security at the server level, where row-level security is based on username or login ID. Question 9. You have a Microsoft Power BI report. The size of PBIX file is 550 MB. The report is accessed by using an app workspace in shared capacity of powerbi.com. The report uses an imported dataset that contains one fact table. The fact table contains 12 million rows. The dataset is scheduled to refresh twice a day at 8 and 17. The reports is a single page that contains 15 app source visuals and 10 default visuals. Users say that the report is slow to load the visuals when they access and interact with the report. You need to recommend a solution to improve the performance of the report. What should you recommend? Our options are A. Change any DAX measures to use iterator functions. B. Enable visual interactions. C. Replace the default visuals with app source visuals. Or D. Split the visuals onto multiple pages. The correct option is D. Split the visuals onto multiple pages. Keep in mind that one page with many visuals may also make your report loading slow. Please appropriately reduce the number of visualizations on one page. Question 10. You have a custom connector that returns ID from, to, subject, body, and has attachments for every email sent during the past year. More than 10 million records are returned. You build a report analyzing the internal networks of employees based on whom they send emails to. You need to prevent report recipients from reading the analyzed emails. The solution must minimize the model size. What should you do? Our options are: A. From model view, set the subject and body columns to hidden. B. Remove the subject and body columns during the import. C. Implement row-level security so that the report recipients can only see results based on the emails they send. The correct option is B. Remove the subject and body columns during the import. Prevent report recipients from reading the analyzed emails. The subject and the body are not needed in the report. Dropping them resolves the security problem and minimizes the model. Question 11. You have a Microsoft Power BI data model that contains three tables named orders, date, and city. There is a one-to-many relationship between date and orders and between city and orders. The model contains two row-level security roles named role 1 and role 2. Role 1 contains the following filter: city square bracket state province equals Kentucky. Role 2 contains the following filter: date square bracket calendar year equals 2020. If a user is a member of both role 1 and role 2, what data will they see in a report that uses the model? The correct option is A. The user will see data for which the state province value is Kentucky or where the calendar year is 2020. When a report user is assigned to multiple roles, RLS filters become additive. It means report users can see table rows that represent the union of those filters. This means that you would see all data where either role 1 or role 2 applies. So the answer is A, not D. Consider a model with two roles. The first role, named workers, restrict access to all payroll table rows by using the following rule expression: DAX column false. A rule will return no tables when its expression evaluates to false. Yet, a second role, named managers, allows access to all payroll table rows by using the following rule expression: DAX column true. Take care. Should a report user map to both roles, they shall see all payroll table rows. It seems to be indeed A in that scenario. User will see the data from the first as well as the second filter. It is filter A or filter B. Question 12. You import a Power BI dataset that contains the following tables: date, product, product inventory. The product inventory table contains 25 million rows. A sample of the data is shown in the following table. The product inventory table relates to a date table by using the date key column. The product inventory table relates to the product table by using the product key column. You need to reduce the size of the data model without losing information. What should you do? Our options are: A. Change summarization for date key to don't summarize. B. Remove the relationship between date and product inventory. C. Change the date type of unit cost to integer. Or D. Remove movement date. The correct answer is D. Remove movement date. The date key and movement date columns have the same information. Movement date can be removed. D, because the best way to reduce the data model size is to remove the unnecessary column. Question 13. You are creating a dashboard by using the Power BI service. You have an existing report page that contains 3 charts. You need to add the charts to the dashboard while maintaining the interactivity between the charts. What should you do? Our options are: A. Edit interactions in the report and set all interactions to filter. B. Pin each chart as a tile. C. edit the dashboard theme and pin each chart as a tile. Or D. Pin the report page as a live tile. The correct option is D. Pin the report page as a live tile. One way to add a new dashboard tile is by pinning an entire report page. This is an easy way to pin more than one visualization at a time. Also, when you pin an entire page, the tiles are live. You can interact with them right there on the dashboard, and changes you make to any of the visualizations back in the report editor, like adding a filter or changing the fields used in the chart, are reflected in the dashboard tile as well. Pinning live tiles from reports to dashboards is only available in Power BI service. Question 14. You need to provide a user with the ability to add members to a workspace. The solution must use the principle of least privilege. Which role should you assign to the user? Our options are A. Viewer, B. Admin, C. Contributor, or D. Member. The correct option is D. Member. Member role allows adding members or other with lower permissions to the workspace. Question 15. You attempt to connect Power BI Desktop to a Cassandra database. From the Get Data Connector list, you discover that there is no specific connector for the Cassandra database. You need to select an alternate data connector that will connect to the database. Which type of connector should you choose? Our options are A. Microsoft SQL Server Database, B. ODBC, C. OLEDB, or D. OData. The correct option is B. ODBC. B is correct because it allows you to connect to data sources that are not identified in the Get Data list. The ODBC connector lets you import data from any third-party ODBC driver simply by specifying a data source name or a connection string. As an option, you can also specify a SQL statement to execute against the ODBC driver. Question 16. A business intelligence developer creates a data flow in Power BI that uses DirectQuery to access tables from an on-premises Microsoft SQL server. The enhanced Dataflow's compute engine is turned on for the data flow. You need to use the data flow in a report. The solution must meet the following requirements: minimize online processing operations, minimize calculation times and render times for visuals, include data from the current year up to and including the previous day. What should you do? The correct option is C. Create a data flows connection that has import mode selected and schedule a daily refresh. A daily update is adequate. When you set up a refresh schedule, Power BI connects directly to the data sources using connection information and credentials in the dataset to query for updated data, then loads the updated data into the dataset. Any visualizations in reports and dashboards based on the dataset in the Power BI service are also updated. Question 17. You have a project management app that is fully hosted in Microsoft Teams. The app was developed by using Microsoft Power Apps. You need to create a Power BI report that connects to the project management app. Which connector should you select? Our options are A. Microsoft Teams Personal Analytics, B. SQL Server Database, C. Dataverse, or D. Dataflow. The correct option is C. Dataverse. Data sources in Power BI Desktop, the Power Platform category, provides the following data connections: Power BI Datasets, Power BI Data Flows, Common Data Service, Dataverse, Data Flows. Other data sources include Microsoft Teams Personal Analytics. You can use the Microsoft Power BI template to import data into Power BI from Project for the web and Project Online. When you are using the template, you are connected to your Microsoft Dataverse instance where your Microsoft Project web app data is stored. Question 18. When importing data from an Excel workbook into Power BI, you receive the error message: we couldn't find any data formatted as a table. What should you do to resolve the error? Select only one answer. Our options are: in the Excel workbook, select the data you want to import, select the data validation button and save the change. B. In the Excel workbook, select the data you want to import, create a table and save the change. C. In Power BI, add a template app. Or D, in Power BI, add an organizational app. The correct option is B, in the Excel workbook, select the data you want to import, create a table, and save the change. The error message indicates that the Excel workbook does not contain a table. To create it in the Excel workbook, you need to select the data you want to import, press Ctrl+T, or choose the table button. Click OK and save the change. Using the data validation button in Excel does not create a table. Organizational and template apps provide a way to implement functionality within Power BI. But in this case, the issue is caused by an absence of a table in the Excel workbook. So installing an app would have no effect on resolving the issue. Question 19. From Power BI Desktop, you create a data source by importing an Excel file that contains 10,000 rows. You plan to identify data anomalies within the data source. You need to ensure that column distribution considers all rows in the Excel file. What should you do? Select only one answer. Our options are A. In the data source settings, modify the advanced settings. B. In the data source settings, modify the edit permission settings. C. In the Power Query editor window, enable the column profile view. Or D. In the Power Query editor window, modify the query settings. The correct option is C. In the Power Query editor window, enable the column profile view. By default, Power BI uses the top 1000 rows for profiling. To ensure that column distribution considers all rows in the Excel file, you need to modify the Power Query Editor profiling status setting. The Power Query Editor settings, advanced settings, and permission settings have no bearing on the profiling characteristics. Question 20. You are analyzing query data by using Power Query Editor. You need to ensure that the column statistics are based on an analysis of the entire dataset. What should you do? Select only one answer. Our options are A. Change the query connection type from import to DirectQuery. B. From the status bar, change profiling status to entire dataset. C. In Power Query Editor, enable column profiling from the view ribbon. Or D. Load the data into the data model. The correct option is B. From the status bar, change profiling status to entire dataset. By default, column profiling is only based on the first 1000 rows of the preview. Changing the column profile status to entire dataset will query the entire dataset for the column profiling information. Question 21. For the sales department at your company, you publish a Power BI report that imports data from a Microsoft Excel file located in a Microsoft SharePoint folder. The data model contains several measures. You need to create a Power BI report from the existing data. The solution must minimize development effort. Which type of data source should you use? Our options are A. Power BI dataset, B. A SharePoint folder, C. Power BI data flows, or D. An Excel workbook. The correct option is A. Power BI dataset. Power BI dataset because the case states there is already a report published and the data model contains measures. Therefore, and to be able to use the measures in the data model, you should connect to the existing dataset instead of starting from scratch with the files in the SharePoint folder. Question 22. You are building a Power BI report that uses data from an Azure SQL database named ERP1. You import the following tables. You need to perform the following analysis. Orders sold over time that include a measure of the total order value. Orders by attributes of products sold. The solution must minimize update times when interacting with visuals in the report. What should you do first? The correct option is D. From Power Query, merge the orders query and the order line items query. It's the header or detail schema, and the most optimal way is to flatten the header into the detail table. Question 23. You have a CSV file that contains user complaints. The file contains a column named logged. Logged contains the date and time each complaint occurred. The data in logged is in the following format. You need to be able to analyze the complaints by the log date and use a built-in date hierarchy. What should you do? The correct option is C. Split the logged column by using @ as the delimiter. You should split the logged column by using @ as the delimiter. This will allow you to separate the date and time into separate columns, which will enable you to analyze the complaints by date and use a built-in date hierarchy. Alternatively, you could also use a transformation to extract the date and time from the logged column and set the data type of the new column to date and time respectively. Question 24. You have a Microsoft Excel file in a Microsoft OneDrive folder. The file must be imported to PowerBI dataset. You need to ensure that the dataset can be refreshed in PowerBI.com. Which two connectors can you use to connect to the file? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. Our options are A. Excel workbook, B. text/CSV, C. folder, D. SharePoint folder, or E. web. The correct options are D and E, that is SharePoint folder and web. We can import an Excel file from multiple connectors, but if we must refresh the data from the service with no gateways, then we must use web and SharePoint connectors. Question 25. You have an Azure SQL database that contains sales transactions. The database is updated frequently. You need to generate reports from the data to detect fraudulent transactions. The data must be visible within 5 minutes of an update. How should you configure the data connection? Our options are A. Add a SQL statement, B. Set the command timeout in minute setting, C. Set data connectivity mode to import, or D. Set data connectivity mode to DirectQuery. The correct option is D. Set data connectivity mode to DirectQuery. About DirectQuery, no data is imported or copied into PowerBI Desktop. For relational resources, the selected tables and columns appear in the field list. For multidimensional sources like SAP Business Warehouse, the dimensions and measures of the selected cube appear in the fields list. As you create or interact with a visualization, PowerBI Desktop queries the underlying data source, so you are always viewing current data. Question 26. Hotspot. You have the Azure SQL databases shown in the following table. You have to build a single PBX file to meet the following requirements. Data must be consumed from the database that corresponds to each stage of the development lifecycle. PowerBI deployment pipelines must not be used. The solution must minimize administrative effort. What should you do? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. Note, each selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, statement, create. Our options are 1 parameter, 2 parameters, or 3 parameters. The correct option is 1 parameters. To the next statement, parameter type. Our options are text, true or false, decimal number. The correct option is text. To meet the requirements specified, we can use a single parameter in the PBX file that controls which database is used for data consumption based on the stage of the development lifecycle. We can use a text parameter type in PowerBI to achieve this. The parameter can be used to switch between the different database connections when a user interacts with the report. The text parameter could include values such as development, staging, and production, which corresponds to the different databases shown in the table. The parameter can then be used in the queries to dynamically filter the data based on the selected stage of the development lifecycle. By using a single parameter, we can minimize administrative effort and ensure that the report works with each stage of the development lifecycle. Question 87. Drag drop. You publish a dataset that contains data from an on-premises Microsoft SQL Server database. The dataset must be refreshed daily. You need to ensure that the Power BI service can connect to the database and refresh the dataset. Which 4 actions should you perform in sequence? To answer, move the appropriate actions from the list of actions to the answer area and arrange them in the correct order. The actions provided to us are: add the dataset owner to the data source, configure an on-premises data gateway, configure a virtual network data gateway, add a data source, configure a scheduled refresh. To the answer area, the correct options among these in the right order are: configure an on-premises data gateway, add a data source, add the dataset owner to the data source, configure a scheduled refresh. Question 28. From Power Query Editor, you attempt to execute a query and receive the following error message. What are two possible causes of this error? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. Our options are A. You do not have permissions to the file. B. An incorrect privacy level was used for the data source. C. The file is locked. Or D. The reference file was moved to a new location. The correct options are A and D. A and D. A if PBI can find the file in the given path. Question 29. You have a Microsoft SharePoint online site that contains several document libraries. One of the document libraries contains manufacturing reports saved as Microsoft Excel files. All the manufacturing reports have the same data structure. You need to use PowerBI Desktop to load only the manufacturing reports to a table for analysis. What should you do? The correct option is A. Get data from a SharePoint folder and enter the site URL, select transform, then filter by the folder path to the manufacturing reports library. Get data from SharePoint folder plus select combine and load to load the data from all of the files in the SharePoint folder directly into your app. Question 30. You need to create a visualization that compares revenue and cost over time. Which type of visualization should you use? Our options are A. Waterfall chart, B. Stacked area chart, C. Line chart, or D. Donut chart. The correct option is C. Line chart. Line charts can have many different lines, for example, both revenue and cost over time. Question 31. You are creating a report in PowerBI Desktop. You load a data extract that includes a free text field named col1. You need to analyze the frequency distribution of the string lengths in col1. The solution must not affect the size of the model. What should you do? The correct option is D. From Power Query Editor, change the distribution for the column profile to group by length for col1. A will affect the size of the model as we would see. B does not give you enough information about the distribution. D is the right answer. Question 32. You build a report to analyze customer transactions from a database that contains the tables shown in the following table. You import the tables. Which relationship should you use to link the table? Our options are A. One-to-many from transactions to customer, B. One-to-one between customer and transaction, C. Many-to-many between customer and transaction, or D. One-to-many from customer to transaction. The correct option is D. One-to-many from customer to transaction. One on the primary key side, many on the foreign key side of the relation. Question 33. You have a collection of reports for the HR department of your company. The datasets use row-level security. The company has multiple sales regions. Each sales region has an HR manager. You need to ensure that the HR managers can interact with the data from their region only. The HR managers must be prevented from changing the layout of the reports. How should you provision access to the reports for the HR manager? The correct option is A. Publish the reports in an app and grant the HR managers access permission. Correct answer is A, because in the Power BI service, members of a workspace have access to datasets in the workspace. RLS doesn't restrict this data access, and RLS is used to restrict access to data, not to layout of the report. Members are allowed to change the report layout. Question 34. You import an Excel file into Power BI Desktop and begin to analyze the data in Power Query Editor. You need to identify outliers in a text column within the data source. Which information should you use from Power Query Editor? Select only one answer. Our options are A. The min and max values in column profile, B. The top and bottom entries in value distribution, C. The value of the distinct entry in column statistics, or D, the value of the unique entry in column statistics. The correct option is B, the top and bottom entries in value distribution. The top and bottom entries in value distribution identify outliers which appear respectively the greatest and the smallest number of the times in that column. The value of the distinct entry in column statistics indicates the total count of different values. The values of the unique entry in column statistics indicates the total count of different values that appear only once. The min and max values in the column profile of a text column designate the entries which appear respectively first and last in alphabetical order. Question 35. You have a table that contains a column named product ID. The product ID column contains values that have a prefix of PD followed by 5 numbers. For example, PD15332. You plan to convert the product ID values to numbers. You need to remove the leading 2 letters from the current product ID values. Which command should you use? Select only one answer. Our options are A. Remove rows, B. Replace errors, C. Replace values, or D. Trim. The correct option is C. Replace values. Only the replace values command allows the removal of leading characters such as quote-unquote PD from the column values. Trim removes leading and trailing white space. Remove rows doesn't affect the values in a column, only the included rows. The prefix of PD is not an error, so replace errors cannot remove the string. Question 36. You have an Excel spreadsheet that contains 2 columns as follows. Category contain names of categories. Subcategory contains name of subcategories for each category. You import the Excel spreadsheet into Power BI Desktop. You need to transform the data to meet the following requirements. Have multiple columns where one column represents one category. Have a single row that includes the total count of subcategories for each category. Which transformation should you use? Select only one answer. Our options are A. Pivot columns, B. Rename columns, C. Transpose table, or D. Unpivot columns. The correct option is A. Pivot columns. The pivot column operation converts data into a table by aggregating values in a column. In this case, you can pivot the columns to calculate the count of product subcategories in each product category. The unpivot column operation performs the opposite task, converting columns into rows. Renaming columns would result in a table with different column names but the same data content. Transposing would simply switch rows and columns without the required aggregation. Question 37. You have the Power BI model shown in the following exhibit. There are 4 departments in the departments table. You need to ensure that users can see the data of the respective department only. What should you do? Our options are A. Create a slicer that filters departments based on department ID. B. Create a row-level security role for each department and then define the membership of the role. C. Create a department ID parameter to filter the departments table. Or D. To the confidential data table, add a calculated measure that uses the current group DAX function. The correct option among all these is B. Row-level security with Power BI can be used to restrict data access for given users. Filters restrict data access at the row level and you can define filters within roles. Note, the questions from 38 to 40 are a part of series of multiple questions that present the same scenario. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question sets might have more than one correct solution, while others might not have a correct solution. After you answer a question in this section, you will not be able to return to it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the review screen. Question 38. We are modeling data by using Microsoft Power BI. Part of the data model is a large Microsoft SQL Server table named order that has more than 100 million records. During the development process, you need to import a sample of the data from the order table. Solution: from Power Query Editor, you import the table and then add a filter step to the query. Does this meet the goal? The correct answer is B. No. This would load the entire table in the first step. Instead, you add a where clause to the SQL statement. Question 39. You are modeling data by using Microsoft Power BI. Part of the data model is a large Microsoft SQL Server table named order that has more than 100 million records. During the development process, you need to import a sample of the data from the order table. Solution. You write a DAX expression that uses the filter function. Does this meet the goal? The correct answer is B. No. Note, DAX is not a language designed to fetch the data like SQL rather than used for data analysis purposes. It is always a better and recommended approach to transform the data as close to the data source itself. For example, your data source is a relational database. Then it's better to go with the SQL. SQL is a structured query language, whereas DAX is a formal language used for data analysis purpose. When our data is stored in some structured database systems like SQL, Server Management Studio, MySQL, or others, we have to use SQL to fetch the stored data. Question 40. You are modeling data by using Microsoft Power BI. Part of the data model is a large Microsoft SQL Server table named order that has more than 100 million records. During the development process, you need to import a sample of the data from the order table. Solution. You add a where clause to the SQL statement. Does this meet the goal? The correct answer is A. Yes. Power Query enables you to specify your native database query in a text box under advanced options when connecting to a database. These were all the questions for this video. You can find the complete PDF of this video on our website certyIQ.com. If you want our custom cheat sheet to help you with your exam preparation, then please make sure to visit the link down in the description. Thank you for watching and stay tuned.